Tennessee Progressive League. This is Rome back again, and I have the honor and privilege of having a conversation with Knoxville mayoral candidate Constance Every. That's every as in for everyone, and she has been in the news. We're gonna talk about it, and you're gonna let her speak for, or I'm gonna let her speak for herself, and you guys are gonna listen. I appreciate you tuning in with me. How you doing today,
I'm
mayoral candidate?
I'm doing well, brother Rome. How are you doing today?
Hey man, I could complain, but that's not why they tune in. Um, so I guess we'll just start from the beginning. You had a situation with Nama, and that has led to a court case, and that's where we're at right now. I will say this, you've joined a long list of luminaries of radical political black people trying to get fair treatment that end up going to jail for it.
Mhm.
Um, History books littered with them, right? So if you don't mind, just could you tell me your thoughts on where we sit right now?
Oh yeah. First off, I want to say thank you so much to Tennessee Progressive League. Thank you to Ron Williams for taking this moment out with me, a time out, to discuss some of the factual conversation around the Nama case. And as you already highlighted, that this is a historical concept. We know how the works of Jim Crow and Willie Lynch operate, especially when you are a black person, and as you have already highlighted, a black person who speaks on behalf of black issues and black concern. Um, and so I would like to highlight, a couple facts. Number one, April 12th, 2021 is when the murder of Anthony Thompson Jr. occurred in Austin East High School's bathroom by Knoxville Police Department. And Officer Cash, Officer Wilson, and Officer Claybo are the three names we remember the most, even though there was a total of four. But the irony is that fourth officer, he did not participate, even though he did not stand and confess at the same time. At the same time, though, he's the only one that allocated enough common sense and maybe had a little bit of father sense, is what I say. Someone who realized, if this was my kid, well, this is how I want somebody to approach my child in the bathroom. And he stood down. But three officers we know today actively participated in the murder of Anthony Thompson Jr. The irony is that these NAMA charges come October the 6th, 2021. So do the math, people. April to October, and in between April and October, we pretty much protested all the way up to the month of October. We kind of had a die down on the back end of September, coming into the fall. Anthony's family were exhausted. Other factors kind of played into why we eventually took a step down from the public pressure and display of demanding justice for Anthony. However, as you already have highlighted, Rome, the target remains on my back, and even to this day, it remains on my back. And so, what you may, if you read the, if you let the prosecution and KPD and the NAMA people tell you this narrative, what they don't want you to believe is that I was an angry black woman who entered that restaurant, who demanded that NAMA people make my food right now, or I was going to blast and shoot up the place. Now, again, pause, Knoxville. Historically, where is such a case? Do y'all think that NAMA is the last place I've ever had a customer service complaint or disagreement with? Do you think that's the last time I've had to ask for a corporate contact or some other necessity? Do you think that every time I have an issue that it's appropriate for any business to say this very malicious and very orchestrated and coerced type narrative to be sold to the public to really do one, to discredit me? Let's be real about this. This is to find a way to criminalize me, to discredit me, because when they cannot debunk the truths that you speak about them, then the next best option that they try to do is criminalization to discredit you. And so that's what I'm dealing with in this particular matter. As I've already kind of highlighted, the issue was I went to NAMA's about a custom to go order pickup. This leads to, for whatever reason, a bunch of confusion around the staff itself on why or it was or was not fulfilled. After being dissatisfied with the answers of the hostess staff, I then requested for a manager to come to the front, because I feel like at this point I need to speak to a manager, because there's clearly been a issue with the order, and it wasn't so much as, oh, make my food or whatever. It was just more so raising the concern so that this doesn't happen to other customers coming forward. That's what you don't understand about me. When I do have an issue, I do I try to bring resolution to the matter, because I always think about the next man or the next person after me, especially if that next person or man or woman after me is black. So that's why I try to go ahead and deal with the issues at the barrier level for us. So when you come behind me, it's not so much of a matter. And even when you think about this NAMA case, that's pretty much what has happened for Black folks. I'm sure Black people get some of the best service in NAMA since my situation has happened. I promise you they do. And so even in that sense, I'm still winning for us somehow. And so when the manager comes to the front, again, it's still a lot of dissatisfied answers for me as a customer on what happened with my order. And then I proceed to ask NAMA for their corporate contact. Now, listen to this, Knoxville. I did not break into the restaurant. I never had to bust open a door. I didn't have to pick a lot or anything. I walked through open restaurant doors. When I went to the hostess stand, there was no closed sign or we're not doing any more order sign or anything up on the hostess stands. There was a hostess standing there at the hostess stand with her head down, playing with something at the hostess desk. So it's not like I saw any even signs of the store saying that they were closed themselves. However, when I start bringing up I want corporate contact, all of a sudden we move to, well, now we're closed, you're trespassing, and if you don't leave, we'll call the police. So that's the part they're not going to tell you. And of course, when we get to that part, I'm immediately going to get upset. I'm immediately going to get frustrated. I'm immediately going to get angry because one, white people, why do you think you can always weaponize the police against Black people? It's like we show the slightest sign of discomfort or dissatisfaction, or we don't agree with your so-called version of fairness and equity, and all suddenly we are again a threat to you because we're telling you, no, we're not satisfied with that, or no, we're not going to accept that, more importantly, and we do demand some type of answer or justification for what is happening. And so of course, I asked the white woman, well, if you call the police, what are you going to say? Are you going to say that you're calling the police because there's an upset Black customer here and they're demanding our corporate contact and we're refusing to give them that information, and now we're trying to call them a trespasser and kick them out the restaurant because basically we messed the order up? We're the ones responsible for not getting this service right. And so, when I called the woman on her silliness, of course she gets even more upset with me. And at some point, I'm not for sure when or how, but at some point we do end up in an argument. We do end up yelling at each other. The kicker is that up to this point, I am no farther into the Nama restaurant than past the front door. If you've ever been to downtown Nama, Knoxville, Tennessee, you know what I'm talking about. When you first walk in, it's that long wall and it's that hostess stand off to the right. That's where I was at. I never actually entered the restaurant ever. And I'm at the door. And so I'm not even at the hostess stands. And between the door and the hostess stands, it is quite a bit of distance. It's at least, we'll say at least 3 to 4 feet max. And so no one's in anybody's personal space. At this point, it's just a yelling match. In the midst of the yelling match with the manager and me expressing my frustration to how I felt like she tried to weaponize the police against me because I'm upset about an order and she's taking it too far. And all I asked for was corporate contact, something simple, something that if she really was trying to get me out of her store at this point, she would have been gave me. And it made me feel like as a customer that maybe you were not doing things right. Maybe you were not doing things appropriately because you didn't give me the number I asked for. You escalated to wanting to call the police. And so at some point, a heavy set Hispano man comes down from behind the sushi bar. He is the one who creates and encroaches space. And the irony is that in the courtroom, he admitted to this numerous times. He admitted on the witness stand that he encroached my space, that I asked him numerous times to back up away from me. He admits that he kept continuing to close my space, even though I requested for him numerous times to not approach me, to not get close to me. And eventually he will create physical contact. And of course, when he creates physical contact, I am going to push him off of me. He is a over 300-pound man. He stands at a roughly about 6 feet or higher. I am 150, 5'8". It's a big difference. I am a female. He is a male. Let's just be real. The advantages are clearly on the table for who would win any physical altercation if it occurred. So I need to do what I need to do now immediately to protect myself and, more importantly, to ensure safety of myself. So I do push him off of me. I've never denied that. Yes, I pushed him. I would still, if he did it again today, I would push him again because I'm not going to let no man of any size that thinks he can walk up on me, intimidate me with his size, think he can do that. I'm going to let him know that, yeah, he may beat me up, but boy, we're going to have a tango between the two of us. And so I push him off of me. And then I become irate with the manager and tell her, I cannot believe on top of that, you're going to let an employee of yours approach me and try to intimidate me and maybe to a certain extent physically assault me. And so I'm even more upset. And I'm like, yeah, y'all definitely got to give me the corporate contact. And so in the courtroom, you're going to hear there is like a 5-minute clip of a 911 call, which, by the way, the caller was derogatory in terminology, called me an idiot, called me a moron, called me a retard. He said they were laughing their asses off of me. Last I checked, this ain't the language of people who claim that they're afraid of an irate Black woman with a gun threatening she's going to shoot everybody up. This is not the language that you would expect to hear on a 911 call. And then you hear me in the background for maybe about, let's say 30 seconds of the call, of the 911 call. Now you can hear me is yelling. It's clear that I'm upset. You can't make out really much of what I'm saying. But what I told you before, what you can also make out what I'm not saying. And what you don't hear me say is that I'm shooting anybody, I got a gun to kill anybody, or that I'm there with a gun to kill anybody. That's what you don't hear. And so we heard this 911 call. But of course, at this point, I've left because I had a friend that I was with, and I was so upset. I lived at Riverview, South Knoxville Riverfront, Riverview Apartments at that time. And so where I lived at wasn't far from Nama. So actually, I ended up walking. And this is really how KPD is able to actually encounter me. Some people say, well, if you would have just stayed in the car, you probably would never run into KPD. And that's a real possibility. But I was walking because I was upset, and I feel like I just need to walk home because that's part of my mental health. People may not know this, but I'm a disabled combat veteran, and I have been through Afghanistan tours twice. And so I do have real mental health. And one of my things that my therapy and that I do with my therapist is part of my therapy. I talk to a therapist twice a week. And one of the things that we figured out is when I'm triggered or upset, it is best for me to create space from the things that are triggering me or bother me so that I can cool off. Because it seems that when I'm not in the same room or space or whatever's bothering me, I can cool off efficiently and come back down to a level head space where I don't feel like I want to do something irrational. And so I needed to walk. And I knew that. I knew that from my therapy that this was our toolkit when I feel this type of anger. And so I was walking. And then, of course, I see Kofi. And if people don't know who Scott Kofi is, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all who Scott Kofi is. He is not a credible witness of any form. I'm going to tell you Scott Kofi is, Knoxville. Scott Kofi is one of the officers involved in Andre Stinson's murder. That's right. Andre Stinson, as you all know, is why we created PARC, police oversights in the first place in America. Like Knoxville was the first to do it because of Andre Stinson. And what the ironic factor to find out that Scott Kofi is one of the officers a part of his murder. So the real question is, Knoxville Police Department, why is this man even still employed with the department in the first place? He is a known murderer. He is a known killer of Black people. And more importantly, by the tape evidence as well in court, when we heard what he had to say about Anthony Thompson Jr. and me particularly, we heard that he has no respect or no regard for Black lives or Black citizens or Black taxpayers of Knoxville. So it's concerning that Scott Kofi is still employed to this day with Knoxville Police Department. But that's a whole nother conversation, and we may get to that or not today. So I see Kofi, and of course, he's already on his radio saying my name, and he's saying things to me. And of course, I go off on him. Of course, I cuss him out like, bruh, why you bother me? What you here for? You know that I don't like your ass no more than you like me. So more importantly, what is it really? And as you all saw from my own live tape, you see Kofi exit his vehicle with his taser pointed out immediately on my chest, talking about I got a gun, accusing me of having a gun. He doesn't even know if I actually have a gun. He's already believed whatever the 911 caller told him. And see, this is what you were talking about. What I've already talked about too, Rome, is that this is where Black people get killed because this man has already gotten out of the car, and in his belief system, I have a gun because that's exactly what he accused me of. And that's really the danger point. Because what if he says, okay, you got a gun? I say I don't, and now I'm shot. Now what? Now what? You done made a mistake. You done killed an unarmed Black person. And then you think that the protest of Anthony was something. Wait till you kill a well-renowned, known Black activist. I think it's going to be quite some trouble down here. And I say to this day that at the same time that could have been a reason to kill me, I think at the same time that's what saved me. Because even then, he was hesitant enough to not shoot me. He was hesitant enough not to shoot Constance Every. And so I still believe that was a factor too. And so you see the exchange on my 30-second clip of where we going back and forth, and you see that eventually him and another officer will ambush me and take my hands into handcuffs. What happens at that point? Like I said, there's on the tape evidence, you'll see where me and Kofi have like roughly a 10-minute exchange as we wait for the female officer to arrive. You'll see that he's gruff. You'll see he throws my personal belongings, such as my wallet, in the street. You'll hear me fuss about the wallet, like you're leaving my money, my ID, and everything else in the street. The other officer, all good, will go over and pick up the wallet because I guess he realized, yeah, that's pretty dirty. You will hear Kofi use a lot of derogatory and demeaning language towards me. And like I said, at some point, I will get him to say out loud his real thoughts about Anthony, and you'll hear him say his real thoughts about me once they put me in the back of the paddy wagon. And so from there, we go into where I basically just had at that time, I just had a disorderly conduct. That's what it was. I had disorderly conduct charge. So even at this time, I wasn't even charged with a NAMA case or a NAMA assault of anything. That comes a month later. So the next day after the NAMA incident happens, me and Rick Roach do go to police department, internal affairs. His friend Gainey Sparks helps me try to contact NAMA. We try to call over 22 plus different lines and numbers, no success. And then I eventually do file a DOJ complaint against Knoxville Police Department that was accepted. To date, Constance Every has the Knoxville Police Department under a DOJ federal investigation. They opened it up of October of 2021, and it's been ongoing because every time KPD do something, I send a follow-up complaint to DOJ under my case number to let them know, do not stop watching Knoxville Police Department because the corruption is rampant and is still ongoing. So I've literally been reporting directly to DOJ for the last 2 years on Knoxville Police Department. So here's the motivation. Here's the motivation. I'm trying to show y'all where they're getting the motivation. It's bigger than Anthony. It's bigger than calling them out for their racism and white supremacy. It's bigger than calling out the black folks who are helping them practice racism and white supremacy. It's at the point where, like I said, I'm using their own system against them right now, as I have a higher jurisdiction of federal investigation up their asses right now, watching what they do as we speak. So a month later, a cop by the name of Thomas Turner. Now again, Knoxville, let me show you how incredible the state witnesses really are. Thomas Turner is a known racial profiler. Google him. In 2016 and in 2018, Thomas Turner cost Knoxville taxpayers money in the lawsuits that he cost us because it was proven he was a racial profiler in black communities. Again, the irony is that he is still employed with the Knoxville Police Department, and just like Jonathan Clabo, he's been promoted too, from beat cop to detective. So you see how they do it? They don't get rid of their dirty apples and their corruption. They keep them and they promote them. So what you think they're doing at higher levels when they get moved up? Oh, they're implementing even greater corruption because they got greater access, they got greater authority, they got greater funding, and they got greater resources. Let's get serious about what's going on in Knoxville. So Thomas Turner, for whatever reason, takes it upon himself, even after the NAMA employees, you can hear on the 911 call, the NAMA employees tell the 911 operator they do not want to file charges and they do not want the officer to respond. But for whatever reason, Thomas Turner takes it upon himself to go to NAMA the next day to conduct a supposed quote unquote a gun workplace violence incident, is what he said on the stand, even though he has no credibility for such investigation because NAMA employees have waived off all rights for an investigation or officer arrival. And it was no report done by the arresting officer that night, which was Scott Kofi, by the way, who admitted himself that he never took me back to a show up for NAMA because there was no need once the gun allegation was debunked. He flat out said it. So his own co-worker did not co-sign his narrative. So Thomas goes back to NAMA, supposedly conducts investigations, get witnesses, somehow convinces the Latino Hispanic man to file assault charges against me, and he writes up this bogus narrative under a sworn affidavit, which is perjury, by the way, and Thomas Turner writes lies in the affidavit, Knoxville, and I can prove it. Literally, he wrote nothing but straight up lies. And so we get to the courtroom, and this is one of the people that we cross-examined. And what I found most frustrating about my case was particularly Judge Sanchez, because I didn't think he gave me a fair and just trial. I think he showed great favoritism towards the state. But given that that was his previous employer, Charm Allen, who was his old boss that he used to work for and represent at state, it shows the obvious biases and direct favoritism, and really obviously a conflict of interest, again, for him even to be the judge of my case, because I am a public figure in Knoxville. There's a lot of issues with the case, Knoxville, and I don't think y'all realize how much of my rights, and more importantly, my civil rights, were violated in this judicial so-called process. And so Thomas Turner is allowed to testify to hearsay. So is Scott Kofi. He's allowed to testify to hearsay. Actually, all of the NAMA witnesses were allowed to testify to hearsay. But the key thing is that they kept telling the jurors that I was calling them white bitches, and that was confusing because only one person said I called them a white bitch, while others said I did. Then all of a sudden I'm calling people niggers, and then all of a sudden I'm not calling people niggers. The witnesses could never land their plane. I'm not for sure to this day what the hell was their story. But the one thing they made sure to kept saying was that I was calling people white bitches, and they kept saying I had a gun and was threatening shooting people, even though in the 30-second 911 clip, we don't hear me say any of those things. And then one of the employees actually did make like a short 10 to 15-second clip of me as I'm riding away in the car, and I am yelling. But you know, again, what you don't hear me yelling? You don't hear me yelling I got a gun. You don't hear me calling nobody no white bitches, and you don't hear me saying I'm about to shoot nobody up. So in the little bit of evidence that we have from NAMA, there is actually nothing to support NAMA witnesses' so-called collaborating stories. There is nothing there on real evidence take to show this so-called I'm gonna shoot you up angry black woman narrative that they try to sell. The other issue I have with my case is that I didn't have a jury of my peers. I had 13 jurors. I had 12 whites and 1 black woman. That's not a jury of my peers. I don't care what you say. The other problem is that all the jurors acknowledged that they knew about Anthony Thompson Jr. So that means if you have created biases about me and how I protested, or maybe how I disrupt meetings, or even how I continue to call out the police when some people felt like Anthony got what he deserved because he had a gun, quote unquote, then you have already created your own biases about me. So really, my jury box should have been dismissed because no one could say they did not know me. And here's the irony today, Rome, that people don't know. One of the jurors, who was the foreman of my jury box, actually had the audacity to try to come and friend me on my Facebook a couple of days ago. Can't make it up. I got screenshots. If anybody want to see that, or when you post this, I'll post it in the comments, the screenshot. One of the actual jurors tried to be my friend on Facebook. So I'm blown away by that in itself. And so, you know, we have a lot of issues with this case. There's a lot of factors to the case that I feel like that, like I said before, between the prosecutor, Tarm Allen, and the judge himself, that they actively work together to give me this manifested form of justice. And more importantly, he restricted my eyewitnesses account. You know, they tried to trap me up in things talking about, did I not run a fundraiser when all this stuff happened with Nam? And I told them, of course, I ran a fundraiser for my legal fees. I said, but it's no different than when white America runs their legal fees for their people. I said, look at what y'all did for the subway killer. He killed somebody on Front Street, choked him out to death, and y'all raised over several $1 million. I was like, Cal Rittenhouse, gun people down at the protest. Y'all raised him $7 million. I was like, let's not forget about Dylan Roop, Burger King boy. Not only did y'all feed him, y'all raised him millions of dollars. So I'm confused at why is it a problem when black people that fight for the community does something to raise money for their legal fees, but when white boys go out here doing the due justice of the Proud Boys and the white militia and the white supremacists, suddenly it's okay for them. And not only is it okay for them, they raise millions of dollars for them. And so I'm confused at why the prosecution even brought that up. So we see the malicious intent of how they try to bring things up that were really irrelevant and had nothing to do with the situation. And so where are we at today? Where we at today is that we are supposed to be having sentencing on August the 3rd. However, I do have a Veteran Affairs appointment, and those Veteran Affairs appointments are very hard to get. And so I am in the process with my lawyer getting that court date rescheduled. Hopefully in September will be more idealistic. I have filed a complaint with ACLU. I am currently working with my lawyer and fellow eyewitnesses of the courtroom proceedings to get our complaints and witness statements together for our DOJ complaint that we will file officially against Tarm Allen, District Attorney of Knox County. And I know it's a lot. That's a lot.
Hey, no, you're fine. You know what really strikes me is because justice system takes time, right? So this actually happened, like you said, about what 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2
I've been
years
waiting
ago.
for the court date. Yeah.
So we know what was going on around that time, right? And we know how many black people were getting killed based off assuming a gun, or like, oh, I thought it was a gun, but it was his wallet, or you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's really sort of you really have to question the motives if someone invents a narrative about a weapon, when they're calling the police on black people. But the other thing that strikes me is I really just saw on the news how they said when Trump got indicted, it was like a boon for his fundraising, which I'm sort of confused as to how that's not like a problem if what you did was a problem.
I mean, I've been watching several cases. I looked at, I'll bring another one up, that comparison to it. Marlon Wayans and the United Airlines situation. I mean, technically it's the exact same thing. Him and the flight attendant have a disagreement over checked baggage. This escalates to where the flight attendant calls the police. When the police arrive, the flight attendant claims some form of assault, which has obviously been able to be debunked on the spot because thank goodness that unlike me not thinking as quickly on my feet and not thinking they was even going to escalate that far, but again, as black people, as you've already highlighted, we gotta be on our P's and Q's. At any given moment, we could be attacked or put in a position where our life can be compromised. So shame on me for not taking every situation, every encounter so seriously. I should have had my phone out at Namas. But he had his phone out, and so when the officers arrived, he is able to show, as far as the assault claim, it's false. However, what I found frustrating as a black person, especially the black person who experienced something so similar to his incident, was that even though the assault case was debunked, the police still charged Marlon Wayans with disrupting the peace, so basically disorderly conduct. So it's like the irony is that he was accused of one thing when it was shown that it wasn't true. All of a sudden, he still gets hit with this secondary charge, and that's pretty much what happened to me. They claim I had this gun. I was going to shoot up the building. When the police get to me, they find out I don't have the gun. And then all of a sudden, oh, now I get disorderly conduct. It's the same shit. And so it's like, it's frustrating. Like I keep telling folks, the problem is that Black people, we cannot be Black in peace. And we definitely cannot be Black in peace in this country called America. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm running for office. That's why I continue to challenge the opposition. That's why I still showed up to city council meeting tomorrow and still vented my frustrations of their failures and their shortcomings. No matter what you think you got on me, it ain't nothing compared to what I got on you. And that's because I know what I'm battling against. And as you've already highlighted from the very beginning of this conversation, what we are talking about is when Black empowerment, Black consciousness comes head up with white supremacy and racism. And that's why Brother Calvin, I'm going to quote him here, as he has been saying the whole time, he finds it perplexing how Knoxville citizens and officials can support the Justices and the Gloria Johnsons, but cannot support a Constance Every right here in Knoxville, Tennessee.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think one of the big reasons is because it's a guy on YouTube that talks about this a lot. And his name escapes me. I'll try to possibly put it in post, but he talks about how when your society tries to tell you that the base standard is one thing, anything that's not that thing, you sort of try to pull against a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those things. It's so insidious, and people don't even realize they're basing decisions off that just like ingrained, sometimes just like base hatred that the culture gives you. You know what I'm saying? Because what was it founded for? It was founded to serve a very specific group of people, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to not serve that master, no pun intended, for these people.
Well, I mean, no pun is intended. We are definitely on a giant plantation. There is absolutely still a mastorial ship happening. And more importantly, as you've already discussed here, is that the hate base. And that's really what that article was that WBIR dropped. As you see how vaguely it's written, it's only alleged and what the police report says, but they throw up there that I'm an activist. They got pictures from the Anthony Thompson Jr. protest with me and Calvin in court. And it's like, y'all are literally trying to spin a whole narrative here that doesn't even actually exist. And what you're spinning it for is what you just highlighted, Ron. They're trying to hope to antagonize and ignite my hate base in the city to come out and say, oh, we knew she was a bad guy. Oh, we knew she was a criminal. And, start to build a campaign of discrediting me because I'm a real threat as a mayor candidate. And I was a real threat before mayor. I've been a threat as an activist here, period. But now that I'm taking activism to the politics, that's a real threat to the infrastructure and the empire that they have been able to well establish here. And it's quite a damn time to be coming in with such an adversary in such a political battle of executive office as I am right now, because they're trying to shove down this baseball stadium. They got that pedestrian walkway. Randy Boyd just announced he wants to create some type of entertainment type tourist type attraction draw in. And so this is a time where his interests are priority. And what he don't need right now is a Black activist as the mayor who will tell him no every single time. Or he can pay with it with his own money, because we're not going to use the people money for none of his get rich quick schemes in our city. And so this is something that is in the interest of all, because let's not forget, Randy Boyd has bribed and extorted his way to where he's at in the city and the contracts he's able to control right now. And so this is in the interest of others that he's also paid off and greased their pockets and giftified the city to death. That's why falling for symbolism is foolishness, because all you're doing is celebrating the removal and the Black genocide of yourself. But he has successfully done that. And so he has a lot of interest partners involved in him. And so me showing up right now is the worst thing and probably the only thing that can really get in the way of his strategy, the plans for Knoxville going forward. And that's why the WBIR article is malicious. And the fact that they dropped it, putting a mayoral candidate, but didn't quote me or call me or even caption me for anything or anyone from my campaign, period, shows that this was nothing more than a smear article, and as you already highlighted, a way to create hate base around me and hope to ignite them and activate them. But more importantly, the real key here is to continue to try to discredit me, because I'm going to continue to speak the truth about them, no matter how many lies they try to tell about me.
Yeah, that's wild to not reach out for comment for a mayoral candidate, especially just so you could say, we reached out and comment and nothing, comment was denied or something of that nature. Like, just not to even reach out. That that seems sort of unjournalistic, you know, like you would think.
Yeah, like anybody that does this work knows that's not how you do journalism. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, brother.
No. It's just like that's just crazy. So yeah, you could definitely think. Um, it seems pretty evident there's a bias there. If there's like, we're not gonna reach out, we're gonna take, because like that's what they effectively are doing, or taking the official narrative for one side, giving
Mm-hmm.
it in the guise of a like news article, but like
Mm,
purposefully not attempting to get any other, viewpoint of this narrative.
right, right, absolutely, absolutely. So that's not journalism. That's called blogging. That's called what do they call it? Clickbaiting. That's called clickbaiting. Things of that nature. Because, like you said before, the goal wasn't to tell a story or actually do any journalism. It was, as we've already kind of highlighted, it was politically charged, and it was an attempt to smear my name and discredit me in the process at the same time.
Do you
And that's
know?
let's be for real. They're mad at me here. And it's not just the government. It's not just Randy Boyd. It's white people in general. They are mad at me in this city.
Right. I was gonna say, do you know, like, have you kept a record? Like, did they have a history of doing that, or have they in the past reached out to you?
I mean, normally in the past, I am always contacted, especially if the article has my name in it. Now with Channel 10, I'll tell you the truth. They might have their own benediction between against me because during the Anthony Thompson Jr. Protesting, we got a tip from a fellow news company that it was a possibility that the police, and not just police, but the feds particularly, supposedly may have infiltrated Channel 10's news station to get closer to us, to do these spy observations or these infiltration observations on us. And so we actually made a pact amongst ourselves in the leadership core of the Anthony Thompson Jr. protest team that we were no longer going to do any interviews with Channel 10 because we could not confirm with them when someone from our network tried to reach out and confirm or even get just on the record a denial of such information. We couldn't get that from them. And so since we didn't feel confident in their presence and their interactions with the police and surveillancing us, we decided we wouldn't do any more interviews for them during the Anthony Thompson Jr. protest. And let's be real, there was a lot of big stories out there around that protesting and what happened there. We all know that international news stepped down and really looked in on this. At one point, we even ourselves had Ben Crump in the city. You can see even now today, Ben Crump has not completely forgot about Knoxville. Every now and then on his platform, he'll share some more police corruption or some other corrupted issues going on in the city. So we still are part of the national narrative of an issue of a city in America that has these racist problems going on today in 2023. And so, I feel like with Channel 10, they have their own benediction. I feel like there was motivation for whoever contacted them to say, hey, we want you to drop this story. Because like I told people before, what I also find interesting is how the article doesn't list an author to it. I was like, I've been doing this thing with media for a while. And what I do know is that almost every single time the article will list at least an author, if not several authors who were contributing to the story. And so I find it very interesting that with Channel 10's article that they dropped on me, it didn't even list an author. So we actually didn't even directly contact WBR and say, hey, we want to speak to this particular journalist that did this particular article. We had to speak directly to like their editors or their managing staff, which is also fine too with us because you're running slander articles. That's really who we should be talking to anyways. But it's just the fact that we can't even pinpoint their staff member who actually did this article on behalf of whoever from the establishment. And I'm assuming someone around Charm Allen and Indy Kincannon camp because that's who really feels threatened by my presence. She's the incumbent. She's the one that really has something to lose here if I become victorious in this election cycle. And so therefore, I just feel like it's in that militia of folks that, again, like I said, it's in their best interest if Constance Every does not become mayor of Knoxville.
Yeah, like attribution is like half of the compensation you get in journalism, right? Like like that's really crazy not to have your name on it. It like, yeah, that's yeah, okay. But no, you had said something else. Or what you were talking about though, like a lot of people might be like, that's sort of outlandish. But if y'all are out there, Google what happened in Colorado with I want to say it might have been a Black Lives Matter group specifically, but like, yeah, they had basically came in the feds and reached out to like a regular cop, I believe, to like join this thing where she basically went undercover, quote unquote, in the Black Lives Matter movement. But the crazy part about it is like all the wild stuff that they, quote unquote, tried to put on one of the people in the group, she was like there, like introducing him to the concept of this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to quote unquote radicalize him.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like the Black Klansman. Remember the movie that they dropped a few years ago, kind of showing how the FBI was originally trying to infiltrate the Black Panthers, and it kind of flipped when it ended up being infiltration on the Klansmen instead. As you said before, there's numerous stories. We know that in Ferguson, Missouri, look at that situation down there, and we know for a fact that it's been confirmed. It's actually already been confirmed to date that definitely police infiltration is part of the cause of several of those activists' deaths to date. And you saw it in Louisville, Kentucky with Breonna Taylor. There was some infiltration up there. Even with George Floyd, if you're on the activist network, one of the things you'll learn real quick is that we are small and big at the same time. Like we're small in our local communities and our statewide, but when we get on the national level, it's quite a few of us. But even then, it's still few of us, even on that space. But we have an active network where we share this type of information. They're like, yeah, it was the NSA ban. People don't know that we had the National Security Agency down here during the Anthony Thompson Jr. Protesting. We had some folks that know how to scan the airways for us, and then when they scan those airways, they able to pick up the signals, and the machines they have that they can read on tells you what the signal is. And we picked up several signals during the Anthony Thompson Jr. protest where it had the NSA presence in our space, and so we shared that. Like, hey, y'all know we had national security down here while we were protesting for 4 to 5. Well, we went roughly about 3 months with Anthony. I was like, for those 3 months, we had national security down here, because again, if you go past that 21-day mark with your protesting, that will get their attention, because they're gonna be like, okay, this might be a long one, or this is something serious, or whatever they may use that as an indicator for them to activate themselves with. When you move past 21 days of straight protesting, that will start bringing in national security interest on what the fuck is going on. And excuse my language, but I got to keep it real with y'all. Y'all know that. Y'all know I keep it 100. And so, therefore, there are networks where we share this type of information where infiltration is very real. And like you said before, Rome, you ain't even got to look. You can look in present time or in past history. Again, who killed Malcolm? FBI. Who killed Martin? FBI. Who killed Patricia Lumbumba? FBI. Who killed Steve Biko? FBI. I mean, run it. They have killed 78 prominent African-based leaders, and that was intentional because it's creating the chaos and dysphoria that we're in now as a people. And so therefore, Black people, let's not act like this is something brand new, especially when it comes to our leaders and those leaders who are courageous and bold at bucking against the system.
Yeah, and you can Google the court cases, or with Malcolm and Martin. But not only that, like there's the documented deathbed confessions, right? And it's the information is out there. I hate to sound like one of those like do your research, but like for real, that the information is out there though.
I agree with you, Ron. We're past the convincing stage. We're past the educating stage. This is 2023. If people could hop on a TikTok to learn a TikTok dance, then they can Google 20 seconds of their own history. And you're right. And as you said, as we've been highlighting, I've been highlighting the movie part, but we have had movies about this. Again, let's not forget about the Black Messiah that we just had come on HBO, where we look at Chairman Fred and Willie. Oh, Willie boy. That is a classic example of how they infiltrate and kill our leadership off. So like you said, Rome, it's out there. Google it. I mean, all you gotta do is put in Google FBI killed Black leaders, and I promise you a load of information will load up for you. You can read through it for days if you like.
Right. But so definitely I wanna talk about your campaign, because that's what's of the utmost important. One last thing, just so people are clear, the charges are misdemeanor, right? Because a lot of people,
Yeah, they're misdemeanor B and misdemeanor C. They are literally the low. You can't get any lower than a class C. Literally, there's nothing else. Anything lower than a class C is basically a dismissal or a toss out. So they are the lowest of the lowest. My lawyer told me if they did put me in jail, he was like, if they literally did, he's like, he's never seen nobody go to jail for a class B or class C misdemeanor, especially someone with no history. And that's the other thing I want to highlight too while we're talking about that. Hey, Knoxville, go find a history. Like I said in the beginning of this whole thing, the one thing I think that the state failed to show and prove, and that's why I'm still blown away by these jurors that I know really led from their white feelings and not from their white understanding or capacity of the system itself. But the reality is that they never established a pattern of history. They literally have no other case. You don't have where I went to Lowe's and flipped out and started throwing hammers at people and said I'm gonna kill them with hammers. You don't have another restaurant where you can say I came in and threw the drinks against the wall, flipped the table over, and said I'm gonna shoot the place up. They don't have that. So that's the other key piece I want people to realize is that on top of that, that's why I also think the charge is a misdemeanor, because there's no historical past. There's nothing to stand on this with. All you got is this NAMA case and then 2 protesting charges, which those protesting charges I would take with a badge of honor. And really, I take this NAMA case with a badge of honor because, like we talked about earlier, this is what they do to the real leaders, the real Black leaders particularly. This is what they do to real Black leaders. They target you, they criminalize you, and they attempt to discredit you, because the main thing is that they want you to shut the hell up. That's what it comes down to. They want me to shut the hell up, and I'm just not going to do that. And so therefore, that's the other piece. But they are misdemeanor charges. And my lawyer said if they did, he's like, normally give you 1129, or the judge won't even give you no jail time. He's like, with your time frame of 2.5 years coming into this courtroom and ain't no other incident happened, my lawyer is really confident that the judge probably won't even give me no time, because he's like, you haven't done anything. They don't have anything to put on you. He's like, this is one thing they got. And so he would be really blown away if the judge put me in jail. But the max they could give me is 30 days in jail, which could be inconvenient if you definitely charge me or if you sent me in August and did that, because that's election cycle. I'll be literally coming out like 2 or 3 days after election when I need to be out. And that could be a strategy, right? They could do this again. They could be doing all this on purpose because they don't want me to be an efficient candidate. And so if you can run the case in June, citizen in August, election days on the 29th, and you got me in jail during that time frame when it's the critical point, hey, you might knock me out the race in the first round, and then I'm done. That gets me out the way, and they can woo-saw at that point, because from there they can control whoever it is, because they know whoever that comes in is going to be on their narrative anyways. And so that would be the only thing. And if they did that, I think my lawyer would definitely have some upright to it. But like I said before, we're going to try to get it rescheduled, because I already have a scheduled appointment with the VA that day anyways. And so we'll see what happens when my lawyer tries to get the scheduling reset. We'll see what happens there. But they're just misdemeanor charges, Class B, Class C, no more than 30 days max in jail. And he could charge me, I think it was up to a $500 fine. I think that's all it is. I mean, literally, that's what it is. It's nothing more than that. And so for whatever record that people are thinking that I got felony charges or whatever you may have heard or said through the grapevine, I'm setting the record straight. They're misdemeanor charges, people, nothing more.
All right, and with that, so what's your platform like? What's your day one? What are you doing? Is you get elected, you wake up? What's your first agenda?
My first thing I'm going to do is fire Paul Noel, as I promised Knoxville citizens. As we all know, Knoxville is not happy with KPD. We are continuing to watch a consistent pattern of misconduct. Most recently, an internal affair officer, veteran officer of 16 years, Officer Amanda Branch, has resigned along with several other officers from KPD. But Amanda Branch is the only one that had the courage to boldly say why she was leaving. And she flat out stated she is leaving because Knoxville Police Department is corrupted. And particularly, Paul Noel is the prime administrator of the corruption. And so we know at this point, bringing in a police chief under deceitful pretenses, lying to the public about an open and public engagement, only to later make it to be a disclosure process and sign off with no real information or even wanting to tell us who the candidates were or who was involved in the process. And then more importantly, bringing in someone from one of the most corrupted police departments in America, the New Orleans Police Department, that everyone knows is currently under federal DOJ investigation. So we know Paul Noel's investigation, along with my investigation already active, is following him and present here as well too. And so my first promise, as I told Knoxville, I am firing Paul Noel as chief of police, and I'm going to name Shelly Clemens as interim police chief until we figure out the process and what we want to do going forward. But that is my number one promise, day one, for Knoxville.
All right, all right. I know that's your number one promise. Like, what's the rest of your platform, or what's the rest of your planks?
Yes, is. Well, I don't want to go too deep in it, Ron, but I'll give you an out sketch of it, because I've done this before. I ran for governor last year, and what I learned is that wait till you get to the base, wait till you get in front of people, because you don't want to give everything up. Because what I learned is that if you give all your goodness out front, the other candidates will pick it up and they'll echo it, parrot it, and even paraphrase it and claim it as their own. And so, with that being said, we also know that the next biggest issue is our housing crisis. Yes, Knoxville, it ain't no joke. We are 22,000 units short to say we're officially even serving our native population of Knoxville. We have over a 4,000 plus waiting list on our public housing of Knoxville. And more importantly, the housing that they're bringing in is not becoming more affordable. It's becoming more costly, more expensive. And more importantly, we have rent rates requirements that are asking us to make 3 and 4 times the rent amount, and the starting rent rate is somewhere between $1,850 and $2,500. So yes, we are going to have to really put our money, as far as our public checkbook dollars, towards our public housing and housing crisis. I personally am a big fan of community land trusting, which allows one, ownership to come to the community and the residents and those taxpayers of wherever that land is sitting at. Two, it gives the people control over the land, so there will be no big boy developer or someone else coming in saying and telling us what they're going to put there and how much they're going to charge us for it. And then three, that is where we can decide as a community what type of housing. Are we talking about apartments? Are we talking about condos? Are we talking about a subdivision? Are we talking about a few single family homes? Whatever it may be. But the point is that we as the people will now control it. And more importantly, the people decides how it moves forward without the big boy developer with all the say so and power coming in. The second thing is that we also need to do some things that I've learned from working and talking with the housing organizations in Knoxville. We need to ensure right to representation. There is a data out there that says that 90% of the time the landlord is represented in eviction court compared to less than 10% of the time the actual tenants are represented in court. That's unfair already. We already know that if you come in the courtroom with a judge and his lawyer and your landlord against you, chances are high you're not going to have a real good outcome in that case. That needs to change. We also need to crack down on slumlording, and it is critical. I know that at the state level we cannot do rent capping because the state has put in a law that says we can't regulate, but what we can do is crack down on slumlording, which is also a form of regulation. If a slumlord wants to increase his rent, then there's going to be a checklist of things he needs to pass off on first before he will be approved for such increases to his rent, because that means his unit is up to subpar standards for the cost of living he is demanding. As well as the fact, more penalties when we have these issues. As we all know, the old what's it called? The old Prince Hall apartments that they're now calling the Dangerous. There was numerous reports coming out of that complex that there was mold, leaky water, often things going unrepaired for days or even months to even years. We had issues with installation. We had issues with crime and violence. It was multiple complaints coming out that area. And so there's no way that any point in time the previous landowner should have been allowed to, one, maintain his operations, and two, should have been able to do the things he did, which was intimidation of his tenants, and also evictions as well when tenants were willing to file complaints or report the complaints. So those are types of things that we can crack down on when we talk about doing slumlord laws and putting more regulations on these landlords and the things that they're doing when it comes to their units and keeping them up to subpar standards. And then the last biggest thing that I feel like is priority number 3 that we have to do something about immediately, like I can't waste any time, first 100 days, is our youth gun violence, which is directly tied to our poverty. And let's just be real. If we're being serious about intervention there, one, we need to change the model of our violence interruption. We're using a model that is not best practice. It has national data, and it has Black professionals and people that do this line of work career-wise that have recommended any program involving or tied to, related, instituted, in connection of, with the police is not a program for violence interruption. It fails because people don't trust the police, and as soon as you see the police or someone looking like the police, dressed like the police, carrying a badge like the police, it distests the engagement and makes people become untrustworthy. If nothing else, and if minimal, they do what? Identify you as the police. So we have to change the model of violence interruption altogether. It is not the ideal model. The second thing we have to do, we have to heavily invest in youth enrichment. And that way we are investing directly into our 47% poverty rate. These children need something to do. Like I highlighted in a previous open public forum speech with Knox County School Board, as I told them, when you live in the East and North Knoxville areas of Knoxville, the activities are all west for the children. Whether you want to go to main event, whether you want to do skating, which skating is over here in North Knoxville, but that's a arena that has its own set hours and it's not every day. So if you're talking about everyday activity, you still got to go west. And so that's the issue. Everything is out west, but our children are over in the east. And then what we do have, which is our park and rec that are accessible to our communities, what are they? They're normally locked up. They're normally fenced off. They got bars on them. They have certain hours that are only programmed around their after school or after care programming, not all day hours, especially like now in the summertime when they need to be open all day. So these kids can go in and play basketball. So they can go swimming. So they can do volleyball. So they can do kickball. And so that's a problem too. And as well as we need to bring a main event to our side of town. We need a urban air on our side of town. We need a jump down on our side of town. We need fine dining restaurants on our side of town. We need to heavily invest in our divested communities to make it equivalent and, more importantly, addressing our wealth gap disparity. And so those are the three things. If I said tomorrow make me mayor, what am I doing? Those are three things I'm doing immediately as mayor of Knoxville, including as well getting us the hell out this baseball stadium, because that's also the death of our Black community. And I believe that if that project is really allowed to go all the way through, then Black Knoxville will be extinct in a race, and more importantly, Black genocide will be successful in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Let me ask you, when you were talking earlier about the community centers and whatnot, because I remember when I was young, my grandmother actually like worked at one, and it was like open, like I want to say it was like 8 to 7 or something like that.
Yep. I went yeah.
So like, when did that stop? Like, I'm sort of shocked I didn't know that. And do you know why?
All I know is that, Rome, I'm born and raised from Knoxville, and all the way up to 2003, when I graduated high school, those gyms were still open. Now 2003, 2004, I leave Knoxville, and I don't come back to Knoxville until 2015. That's just been honest with you. So that's why I got back. That's really how I get to the front lines, because when I return home, I see Knoxville digressing, or at least my communities and my neighborhoods and people that look like me, where I thought we would have been at when I returned home after I left for college in the military, we had digressed from that. And so that's what got my attention, and really what brought me to the front line. I was like, wait a minute, what is happening in Knoxville, especially in East Knoxville, especially in Black Knoxville? What happened to our Magnolia Strip? What happened to our centers and our youth enrichment? What happened to, like you brought up, what happened to our Black Greek program, where they were bringing in the Black boys and girls in the high schools into their into their junior Greek program, and doing the debutantes and the esquires and things like that? Like, what happened to basically the youth enrichment here? And what I've learned so far is that it's just been a constant divestment. They have found United Way to bring in as a big brother partner that has used its middleman power to manipulate and control which organizations get money, which ones don't. And again, it comes down to your loyalty to the establishment. So when you start choke necking or bottlenecking the resources and start only distributing to those that cater to your wants and needs, you start seeing this depletion of these particular resources. Because some programs are going to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to beg you for that. We've been standing, we've been established. We are here for our people, and we'll try to ride out the long way. But unfortunately, when you ain't got no money, no resources coming in, the long way really ain't really the long way. It's a short way out. And so, unfortunately, with the way the last few administrations, when I left Knoxville, I'm not sure who was the mayor in 2003, but when I left and when I returned in 2015, those sets of mayors in between 2003 and 2015 really killed Black Knoxville with their anti-Black and anti-poor policy that they were passing through those series of administrations.
Well, there we have it. I guess I got to Google now and try to see, when this is 2003 to 2015.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that's one thing. And I know you have things to do, so I won't try to keep you too much longer, but that's one of the things that I have always just been sort of intrigued by, is because Knoxville has such a rich history when you know about it, or when someone educates you about it, of like, Black entrepreneurship, Black leadership, things of that nature. And it seems like because I'm from Chattanooga, right? So like Chattanooga almost like wears it on its sleeve. We had like Betsy Smith Strut when I was growing up, you know what I'm saying? Goes out of its way to highlight this, even if it's not something that they actually like really are trying to live up to. Like, they'll at least like let you know about it, right? And it's just like Knoxville stuff. I find out stuff, but there's no like city celebration of it. There's not like a so-and-so day or so-and-so's week, or you know what I'm saying?
I hate to say it, Knoxville has allowed symbolism to be their way of recognition of our history. And I say that because, let's be for real. How many people knew about William Yardley last year when I ran for governor? I highlighted him as a pioneer for why I was able to run for governor in the first place. Well, people don't know William Yardley was the first Black man to run for for governor of Tennessee, right here out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, the irony is that the expensive $2,500 condos that they're erecting right now over there in the old Austin Homes neighborhood that has been erased and no longer will be known, because they've already named it, and they're going to call it, the building names are going to be named after Yardley and Delaney. The irony is that Nobody knows William Yardley for real, because they don't, like you said before, they don't talk about him, and they don't celebrate him, and they don't identify his work and what he did in this community and really statewide and even nationally for Black people. I mean, we're talking about the 1800s now. We already rare voices in 2023, but could you imagine how rare a strong Black voice was in the 1800s? Come on, Rome. We ain't stupid here. We know what's going on in the 1800s. So it was extremely rare if a Black man was speaking up on behalf of Black people. And this man not only did it from Knoxville, Tennessee and the state of Tennessee, he was basically recognized nationally because, again, that voice was really small back then. And so, like you said before, it's shameful they don't raise him up here in Knoxville, but I think, again, it's intentional because Knoxville don't want loud Black people. Knoxville don't want Black people that's going to be Black conscious. Knoxville don't want Black people that's going to speak to Black issues and concern. And so if you think about the mindset of Knoxville and how it operates and more of its Jim Crow, Willie Lynch plantation style mindset that it holds, then of course you want to talk about William Yardley, because William Yardley does what? He inspires Black people, and that's what you don't want. You don't want a bunch of inspired Black people because then they might figure out to do some things for themselves. And so to just counter with what you're saying, Rome, is that you're right. I'm agreeing with you that it is not, in my opinion, it's not only that Knoxville don't celebrate our leadership. I think it's intentional because when you start talking about Knoxville's pioneers in the civil rights movement, like Avon Rollins and them, these are people who inspire and, more importantly, create Black consciousness and Black thinkers.
Well said, well said. So go ahead and let us know, where can people, if they want to reach out to the campaign, they want to volunteer, like what's the best way for them to get in contact to do something like that?
So, of course, we're on social media, but as you know, we have branded ourselves under one brand. It is called TN, that is Tennessee, the letter of our state. I'm sorry, our state initials, the number 4, Every, my last name, Every, the number 1, TennesseeForEveryone.com. There you can find ways to volunteer. You'll see my full calendar where I'm going to be at throughout the week or throughout the month. You can also look at our media links. You can see my platform, what it stands for. You can register to vote. You can check your voting status and other things of that. You can find your poll location. And as well as the fact, follow our social media. I have a link tree up. Definitely tap into that. That lets you tap into my nonprofit work with my 2 nonprofits that I founded here in Knoxville: Black Coffee Justice 501c4. I'm sorry, Sleeves for Needs, a 501c3. I am a social entrepreneur. That is really my track record in the city and what I've been doing for the last 7.5 years. Besides activism and advocating, I actually do nonprofit work, as well as most recently we have converted Black Coffee into a lobbyist organization. So we are always looking for lobbyists, especially and most importantly, particularly Black lobbyists. We are 1 in a million. I will say with great honor, this year in the 2023 113th House State Legislative Session, Black Coffee Justice was the only Black lobbyist organization on the Hill this year. So we made history as well again this year. And as well as the fact, follow my social media platform, especially Facebook and TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Facebook is where we have our weekly schedule of our events. Right now, we're door knocking every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Right now, we're in the North Knoxville area. It's one of the largest mass areas as far as district and regional space in our city. And so this is a huge area, and we definitely need a lot of hands on deck to help. So if you're trying to do that, just send me an email or just tap onto the Facebook event and sign up right there on the spot. And we put up where we meet at, our rally point. We'll see you there, and we'll go out and do some door knocking together. And as well as the fact, we're still waiting on debates. So whenever they're eventually hosting debates, I attend all the public meetings. So if you have a neighborhood meeting, you have a club meeting, you have an associated meeting like the Motley Crew monthly has their meeting, I attend that. The East Knoxville Black Business League, they're meeting this week. They're having a candidate forum for the citywide candidates. Come out at 8 o'clock, Jacobs Building, show up. I'll be there at that. We have the Black Caucus coming in town this Friday at the Beck Culture Center, part of our Juneteenth celebration weekend. And so I'll be there at 6 p.m. speaking with our Black Caucus about some of the very things we talked about on this call today, Brother Rome. And as well as the fact, as I said before, anywhere where there's an activity or event, you better believe I'll be there. And I'll always be found at our public meetings, where City Council, County Commission, School Board, KUB. I even go to the neighborhood council meetings. Like, I am always well known at our public meetings. So you can always catch me there. And so the best way, as I said before, and I know I feel like I'm being redundant a little bit, but the best way to track us is Tennessee for Everyone, and follow that thing all the way through. It'll lead you directly to me.
Hey, well, hey, I appreciate you making time to speak with me today. And once again, I'm glad you were able to clear the air, get your own words out to describe what's going on in the situation, but more importantly, to get your message out about what you offer as a vision for your mayoral victory coming in the next year.
Yeah, this platform is prioritizing the people, and particularly the Black and poor people. I see our homelessness. I see our Black people. I see our poor people. As I've highlighted on my card, if you have one of my campaign cards, I highlight some facts. One, 61% of the homelessness is made of people who can no longer afford their homes, meaning they were priced out or put out because of the increase in cost of living. Second, increase the cost of living has went up by $1,000 in the last year alone. So that's $1,000 a month for the in 1 year turnover. So you do that, that's an extra actual total $12,000 a year alone in cost of living has went up in Knoxville. 47% of Knoxville poverty rate is made up of Black people. Additionally, of that 47% of Black people poverty rate, the average income is $20,000 or less a year for the 47% poverty rate. On top of that, KUB, let's talk about them. I know there's some people out there that cannot afford their lights, and they agree that our lights are too damn high. And I absolutely agree with you there, because KUB has made poverty pimping into a real racketeering for their net income. And that is due to the fact that in last year alone, KUB made $3.3 million off of disconnection and reconnection fees. The kicker is they made another $500,000 off of restoration fees for those services to be reconnected and reestablished again. So KUB ran a racketeering on us that's like no other. And then lastly, but not least, we know that we are having medical deserts. We know we have food deserts. We have seen organizations like Rudy East, Battlefield Farms, and Three Rivers showing us a real way to address those type of concerns and disparities. We know that Knoxville Harm Collective, Tennessee Harm, and Sleeves for Needs are organizations who have actively been working on ground with the homeless for several years now. And there are several other grassroots-based organizations like Yo STEM, Campus Do Miracles, the Golden Gloves. I could run a list of organizations that we need to invest in that have been doing the grassroots work, and they just need the resource, accessibility, and elevation. And those are the things that Constance Every stand for, and those are the things that I'm prioritizing on this campaign.
Hey, and with that said, thank you everyone listening to Tennessee Progressive League podcast.
And I appreciate you, Brother Rome. Thank you so much. Constance, Mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee for Everyone, signing off. Appreciate you,
Yes,
brother.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.